Welcome to Research and Writing for Religious Studies. I'd like you to begin the semester by going to the video that's posted below the lecture, and I want you to watch The Tortoise and the Hare. This is from Aesop's Fables. Okay, are you going? I'm watching you. Pause it. Go watch the video. I'm not joking. This fable contains a very wonderful piece of wisdom for succeeding in this class, and that is slow and steady wins the race. A person of average intelligence who has self-discipline and works a little at a time will always outperform someone with a very high IQ who procrastinates. So if you tend to procrastinate, try not to do that in this class. The nature of writing a research paper requires that you start early. It is impossible to produce a high-quality product when you start the night before a paper is due. So, slow and steady wins the race. The other secret to success in this class is asking questions. That's very important. I worry about students who never dialogue with me and never ask questions. Don't be shy about contacting me. I'll be happy to respond to any questions you have. You can even call me. I don't mind. Also, avoid this approach to writing a research paper. Many students follow this general schedule for writing a research paper. You see, work begins, then there's a red portion, a big, long portion in there in the middle where you kind of forget you're enrolled in the class, where you goof off, then panic, and then at the very last minute, stay up all night doing the rest of the project. Waiting until the last minute generally results in one of two things. One, you wait until it's too late and produce a paper that is poor quality. Still, I respect people who do their own work. The other kind of student, though, I call Judas. Judas students are those who wait until the night before, get in a hurry, don't do their own work, and copy and paste something from the internet and call it their own. They plagiarize and fail the class. Waiting until the last minute is a way to put yourself in the place of being tempted to plagiarize. So let's avoid that by doing a little at a time. Slow and steady wins the race. Have I made my point? Some major objectives for this course. I want you to come away from this course with these two things. One is learning to read and understand research reports, that is, academic journal articles. And we'll also be looking at other kinds of sources like Bible commentaries and other kinds of tools to help you in writing theological and Christian education papers. But the peer-reviewed research reports are a very important source of information. And the only way to learn to read them is to learn to read them. And we're going to begin this week looking at some. The second thing I want you to learn in this class is how to write a research paper from the ground up. It is a process. It's like building a house. It has foundational elements. It has a frame. It has the finishing touch. We'll go through all those things in this class. And hopefully, if you have anxiety about research and writing, it will go away this semester. And maybe even you might enjoy it. I hope. There's some classes you can memorize your way through. And it is true there is a little bit of memory work for this class. Most of that deals with learning Turabian style. But critical thinking is really important in this class. And asking questions. And asking the right questions. Based on the questions you ask, you'll be gathering information and then judging the meaning of the evidence that you gather. I'm not going to give you a topic in this class. You'll be choosing your own topic, and that's something you need to be thinking about now. I'll give you some suggestions here in a couple of minutes for how to get started on finding a topic. There are two basic kinds of research we'll be looking at for this class. One is quantitative research, which has to do with statistics and comes from the natural sciences. The other is qualitative research, which comes from the social sciences and has to do with making sense of patterns or themes in language, culture, or even things like archaeological artifacts. Quantitative research is objective, or at least it pretends to be objective. This is because it comes from the natural sciences. The natural sciences view the universe like a big machine, and it requires precision. If we're going to shoot a rocket from the Earth and get it into orbit around the moon, that has to be a precise trajectory calculation. If we're half a degree off, we're a couple of 100,000 miles out by the time we get to the moon. So it's objective and precise, or at least it tries to be objective. Although when humans are involved, that's a difficult thing. It is also what we would call linear and closed-ended. What I mean by that is in quantitative research, normally researchers will review the literature and see what other people have found about topics related to the research they want to do. And then based on other research, they make an educated guess about what they are going to find. Then they apply whatever test they're going to or collect data. They crunch the numbers, they do the statistical analysis, and in the end they say my educated guess was correct or it was not correct, and they explain why. That educated guess, by the way, is called a hypothesis. The advantages of quantitative research is that we can study more individuals. You can send out surveys. If you're studying people, and let's say we're studying pastors' attitudes towards setting priorities, we could develop an online survey and then send an email and have the pastors go to that online survey and fill it out. So we could study, 500 or 1,000 pastors that they would respond to it. And so it doesn't cost a whole lot. Basically what we have, the cost is maybe paying for a service like SurveyMonkey to be able to host the survey, to post it there, and then maybe a cost for the statistical analysis software like SPSS. We can also make inferences to a population. The presidential race is one of those times when political pollsters try to figure out who is going to vote for president. So they don't want to get a sample of registered voters. They want likely voters, people who are actually probably going to go and vote. They try to get a representative sample of the population of the United States to figure out who's going to win. It would be impractical for a pollster to look at to try to poll or do a census of everyone in the United States and find out how they would vote. That would be impractical, maybe even impossible to do. But what is doable is to find a representative sample of the population and then make inferences from what you find in the sample back to the population of who's going to win the presidency. The other advantage of quantitative research is it has an ending point. You collect the data, you crunch the numbers, you explain why you found what you did, and that's it. The disadvantages is it is shallow. Let's return to our example of pastoral priorities. Let's say that we ask pastors to give us maybe their priorities for the ministry, or maybe the biggest challenges pastors of single staff churches face, and they go and fill that out. We know what that person thought about the issue during the 5 minutes they were filling out the survey. The problem is that they may have been having an issue that they were very angry about that dominated their thinking, and 2 days later they might respond differently. So we have a snapshot of what they thought during the 5 minutes they were filling out the survey. In that way, it is shallow. It also strips away language. In other words, it reduces language to numbers, so you can do statistical analysis. which leads us to the next point. Statistical analysis and statistical terminology is like reading a foreign language, and that can be off-putting to many people. In the folder for this week, I have put an example of a quantitative article. I want you to take a look at this article, read it, and there'll be some questions relating to this article and the characteristics of it in one of the discussion board threads for this week. As I said before, qualitative research is developed in the social sciences, and it's often perceived as being inferior to quantitative research. Really, it is just different. It looks at data differently. The data of quantitative research is numbers. The data of qualitative research can be many things, but probably the most common, especially for theological or philosophical research, is analyzing existing texts or language. It enables researchers to get beyond what quantitative research can study, like things like social and cultural phenomena. So it deals a lot with language and culture. Qualitative research is subjective. Sometimes in qualitative research you'll have what is called participant research, where the researcher is actually part of a group. So let's say that you want to know what it's like to be a student at Wayland Baptist University. As a qualitative researcher, you would apply to the school and become a student and research by sitting in classes, interviewing your fellow students, journaling about what it's like. It's also open-ended, because how do you ever know all there is to know about being a student at Wayland? Well, you don't. And so there's never a real ending point. It's just a matter of time and money when you have to stop. What I mean by evolving is that I started out with ideas of what it's going to be like to be a student at Wayland, but then after I am a student for a couple of months, I will probably have to revise my ideas. And then I go back for another 2 months, and with more experience, I revise my ideas and refine my ideas again. So that's the evolving part of it. So it's a cycle of learning more and refining your ideas. And it relies on the ability of the researcher to directly analyze things like transcripts of interviews, or maybe observing people through a video recording in the classroom, interacting with each other. In other words, there's no statistical package to do this for you. It's a more bare-handed approach to doing analysis. The advantage, well, if I want to know what you think about something, I'll ask you directly and write down what you say, and then analyze that, or observe your patterns of behavior. Rather than reducing things to a number, it describes things. It analyzes the language rather than reducing it to a number, and then describes it in language. It studies a few individuals or groups. This is because of the limit of time and money. The goal of qualitative research is holistic, in-depth information. Where we were talking to pastors, as an example I gave before, asking them about what are the greatest challenges they face in a single staff church. Another way to study that, rather than having them fill out a survey, is go spend a week with a pastor of a single staff church. Maybe study 4 pastors. So you've got 4 weeks of spending time with each pastor, gathering in-depth information, doing interviews, observing them. So you're looking for holistic information, and you can gain a lot of information in doing something like that you would never get from having a pastor fill out a survey. So a lot of times qualitative research will be used for exploratory studies. If you don't know much about a phenomenon, the first thing you have to do is go in and study it and name things. You can't do a quantitative study until you have the nomenclature laid out and you've classified things. And so a lot of times qualitative goes first. So in that way, qualitative and quantitative go hand in hand. It can also be complementary. A lot of studies will have a quantitative part where they analyze things statistically. Then they'll have a qualitative component that fills the picture out by looking at language and patterns of behavior directly. The disadvantages is that because qualitative research typically studies fewer cases or individuals, it doesn't even seek to get a representative sample, so it can't make inferences back to a population the way a political pollster would. It is also time consuming. In my example of studying pastors of single staff churches, the person has to spend 4 weeks. And how do you fund that? If you're going to be away from your home, you have to stay somewhere, you have to feed yourself, so it's time consuming and expensive, and then it has no real ending point. I also have an example qualitative article in the folder for this week, so take a look at that, and we'll discuss that in a discussion board thread as well. There is a debate, and I realize there are differences of opinion about this, but really, philosophical, historical, theological, even legal research can be classified as qualitative research because these deal mainly with analyzing language. You're going to run into a lot of these probably in the research you do for this class. You'll be looking at a lot of philosophical, historical, and theological documents, and really all those, because they deal with analyzing language, fall under the category of qualitative. Now, some people would make a very strong case for these types of research standing alone, but I think you can make an equally strong case for them all being a different type of qualitative research. Characteristics of a research report, or we also call them a journal article, is there is typically an abstract, a literature review, a method of whatever research they did, analyzing the data, the findings from the analysis, and the discussion. Now, if it's a statistical article, the discussion is important because that is where the findings in statistics are expressed in plain English. So if you don't understand statistics, it's often best, rather than get discouraged, to skip over the analysis section and go right to the discussion, because that's where it'll be explained. But in any kind of research, legal, theological, philosophical, qualitative, or quantitative, the researchers are going to give an abstract, which is an executive summary of the study. It's going to have a literature review where the people who are doing the research are talking about other studies that have been done that were related to the research they are doing. They're going to talk about their method of analysis in some way. It'll look very different if it's a philosophical or a theological article than if it is quantitative, but it will still have some kind of a method and analysis section, and then a discussion of what was found. So they all kind of generally follow this pattern. Popular periodicals are things that you should avoid in doing research. Reasons to avoid them are: popular periodicals are things like Time Magazine, People, Wired Magazine, even Christianity Today, are written for the general public. And for this class, we want to encourage you to be looking at things written by experts to other experts. Because when people do that, they use a lot more specialized vocabulary, and part of the point of getting education is to learn to build that vocabulary. So when you select your topic for this class, you're going to be educating yourself about that topic. And the advantage you will have over me at the end of the term is that even if I know something about the topic you picked, you will be more current in reading about that topic than I will be. Popular periodicals are also found at the local newsstand. You aren't going to find the journal American Systematic Theology at Barnes & Noble. It's not going to be there, because the only people who are going to subscribe to that journal are probably professors in a seminary or seminary students. It is a very specialized audience, but popular periodicals found at the local newsstand because they are directed to the general public and there's lots of people to buy them. The third reason to avoid popular periodicals is that they are written by a journalist, not an expert. And even if the journalist is well intended, they may get certain technical aspects of the topic you're writing about wrong simply because they are not an expert. By the way, sometimes experts write in popular periodicals, but again, they are directing their comments to the general public, and so their language, the concepts they express, are not going to be nearly as specialized. So don't use them. Don't use them as a reference for your paper. So we talked about magazines. There's some other kinds of things you should avoid in doing research, citing sources for your research paper. One is mass market books, or sometimes they're called vanity books. I was at the bookstore the other night here in Anchorage, and I found a book entitled Oprah's Book of Happiness. It might be a fine book, but the problem with that book, just like magazines and newspapers, the popular periodicals, is that mass market books are directed to a general audience. And so it's not going to have the kind of specialized terminology and advanced concepts that a book written by experts to other experts would have. You should also avoid book reviews. Sometimes when you go into search engines, you'll find something that looks really good, and you find out it's a review about a book. You should be reading the book itself, not citing the review. Blogs are problematic. Do not cite blogs, because if you find a blog that supposedly is written by Ben Bernanke, a past Fed chairman, do you know that Ben Bernanke was actually sitting at the keyboard? Avoid those. General dictionaries, also good to avoid those. You want to go to a specialized dictionary, especially in fields like Christian education or theology. Go to a theological dictionary because it's going to have a lot more specific technical definition than a general Webster's dictionary you pull off the shelf in your office. Wikipedia. Wikipedia may someday gain acceptance in the academic community, but I'll tell you right now, it is not in favor because it's an open edit system. Anyone who's a member of Wikipedia can edit any article. And so it's a crapshoot if you go and look at Wikipedia as to whether that article is correct and accurate or not. Wikipedia is useful as a finding aid to get an overview of a topic, but never cite it directly.